Hello, it's unusually sunny today, so I thought I'd crack on with a few jobs in the garden. It being getting to second week in December, I thought I'd catch up on some cuttings. Some of them have been here for a while. For instance, this jasmine here is already rooted well, but some other plants in my garden that haven't done so well, such as my calicarpa, only had a few berries on it, but we had quite a savage winter. Some good time to take some cuttings off it now, as you can see. So just below some of these buds here about there, and I might take half a dozen cuttings because I do like calicarpa. Quite pricey in the garden centre as well. Lovely, lovely clusters of little purple berries in the winter. It's deciduous here. It's nice to see that these flowers are now about to form on this ivy. These will then turn into black berries, which are edible for hungry wildlife over the winter time. And I've got a whole area of my garden which is given over to this, so you know, the smaller animals like wrens love this, and squirrels of course will come along looking for the last of the as you can see them there, the last of the crab apples there. They'll reach over and grab what they can of those these crab apples. This year for my garden pond I'm doing a bit of an experiment. I noticed the leaves are fermenting a lot at the bottom of the pond, but instead of just raking them all out, I'm actually just putting lots of fresh water in to oxygenate it frequently. At the moment we've got no problems in Britain. As you've probably seen, we have some serious problems with flooding. If there was a water problem I would actually dredge this out a bit, but I'm trying another experiment of just letting the rainfall do its job. If you do have a garden pond, don't forget, get some milk bottles handy for when the ice comes. I about half fill them full of water, and I put 2 or 3 of them in when I know from the weather that you know, hard ice is about to form, and that'll stop the deaths of lots of amphibians in your pond. I've lost some over the years. Sometimes I just can't get all the ice off. If it is very heavy ice, the best way they say to get through it is to put a boiling pan of hot water on top of the ice and just keep replacing the hot water. Don't pour hot water onto the ice, because you need to get some air into the pond to save any frogs and other amphibians which could be living over the winter in your pond. At the moment, as you can see, I'm changing the water in the pond. If it won't clear after I keep changing the water, it's on a slow method with a hose, then I will just remove a lot of the debris from the bottom. But that's where they want to hide, you see, amphibians. Some of them will also dig themselves in around the pond, so I don't tend to walk around it much. Best thing for frogs though is this. It's a compost heap. The frogs and other amphibians love this. Some even grass snakes will share this. Just keeps some wildlife going, and of course hedgehogs. So I don't tend to light fires in my garden, and the least number of fires we can light, the better for the air quality. Of course, if you've got lots of little trees and plants in your garden, you're actually helping your neighbours by cleaning up the air in your neighbourhood from car exhaust fumes. Of course, it's always nice to have a bird bath as well, which the birds really appreciate, and I also get rid of the ice on it and replace the water when I can. And this is where I put my fat balls for the wild birds to eat, where I live in England. And you get visitors to your garden. They're very hungry in the winter because there's not a lot of food for birds to eat in Britain. Lots of farmers don't feed wild creatures, so there's no food for them. So people who live in the cities and the country and out of the countryside have to keep our wildlife alive, such as hedgehogs and frogs and newts. Inside I've got lots of this lemon balm. I dry it out, makes a really nice soothing calming drink for night time, helps you go to sleep. One thing about blackberries is that you have to keep renewing them. They grow best on young stock, so 1 or 2 years old. When they're very old I tend to take cuttings from them, and they often die off, so I always take loads and loads of cuttings. They don't always take. And also you get variation and crossbreeding, so I'm always trying to get different varieties of them. The other cuttings I've got in here include Wigalias, which is there, and also I've even taken a few other plants such as syringa, which I've got in the back garden as well, when it's all quite woody. And I've got a number of these pots, and they work. I've had some beautiful rootings done from black currants, but also, surprisingly, my red currant bushes have rooted in the front garden after a year, just being left in water. But my little secret and my tip for you is you can put in some seaweed food for them. Some people also recommend using cinnamon and a tiny bit of aspirin as a rooting agent, but you can always buy your rooting hormone. Just make sure it doesn't dry out. As you can see here, I've got my branches here of other plants. I've also taken some of Deutsche, which is like the beautiful sort of flowers, ornamental flowers, which go into bud. They're quite woody at this time, so Deutsche, which is basically a good one to take cuttings from as well. On days like this, you get these beautiful blue skies and stark branches. There's my cherry trees there, and I get followed around the garden by the robin. This is an extendable lopper, very handy in the garden for pruning trees if you live in an urban environment. It can be extended to up to about 12 to 14 feet, which means you can actually trim trees in the garden in an urban environment, even though you can't reach them with a ladder. It can cut branches 50 millimeters thick, and you can put, there's a bow saw attachment that goes on top, so you can even prune things up to 16 to 18 feet high. It takes quite a strength to use. It's got a double pulley system. You can get ones with a triple pulley if you're not as strong as I am, but I used to do archery, so I've got quite strong arms. This is what I pruned yesterday. It's a fig tree, believe it or not, and you're supposed to trim off the top buds, and that means that it'll produce fruit on the side branches. Even in an urban environment which is heavily full of people, you still get fruit. An extendable lopper can take the top buds off this fig tree, which is about 18 feet high, so that will get more side branches and you'll get better fruiting. And also this gets more sunshine. This faces the southwest. Prevailing winds in England are southwesterlies. My next major job will be using my shredder, and as it says on the side there, you've got to have your eye protection on. And this one's got a number of different places where you can feed in your cut branches, and you can see, well, look down there, you can see there's the cutter down there. Let's try and zoom in for you. Yeah, there's the cutting blade there. You can get replacements for these ones, they're quite handy. Here we have my mystery parcel. It's come from Ashridge Nurseries. Box finally opened. Its own stock of the native British wild plum. It's our only native plum that grows in the wild. Other ones, such as damsons and such like, they've been introduced, but this is thought to be a native species. So this is a hedging plant. Oh, I've already got a little green leaf. So these need to be planted now while they're dormant, obviously when the ground's not frosty and icy, down the allotment, and I should be hopefully getting some plums from this. It's self-fertile. Very excited about my bullaces because I've got seeds from cherry plums I've collected from various hedgerows that's on the ground. I've had to break open the seeds from stones, and I've also got some other wild I've got damsons. I grew some damsons. I've grown some damsons from seed. It took 7 years. That's been on a previous video. So I've grown damsons from seed. That's from wild damsons found around villages near here. In the Midlands of England. Basically they fall all over the pavement, people step all over them, and I just picked up a load of the old and collected the seeds. And obviously cherry plums do grow very well here in the UK, so I've collected loads and loads of seeds to plant out in the springtime. They're all in the fridge, but this is the first time I've been able to get hold of bullaces. I've got some bullace, I did get some bullace seeds out from some wild ones, but I looked up to see whether anyone would sell these, and they're mostly used as a rootstock. But not many people grow them to eat, but the Tudors used to, our ancestors did. And they apparently make a fantastic pie. They can grow very tall and they crop heavy, but they're not as large as domestic plums. However, they're self-fertile. So here we have my bullaces. There's a whole hedge of them basically. And because I can't get down to the allotment for a while, I've got caring duty, so basically I've just put them into this big container. I put a little bit of sugar in them to provide a bit of energy in case there's still a bit of things going on, and I'll just put a tiny bit of seaweed food in as well. If I can't get down, I shall heal them in. I've got some compost, I'll just heal them into some pots. Here inside my fridge door is where I store my wild plums. So I've got a mixture here of cherry plums, bullaces, which is Britain's only true native wild growing plum, it's self-fertile, and lots of other different cherry plums. We've got some red cherry plums, yellow ones, and also one I found which is a cross between the red and the yellow, sort of pinkish cherry plums. These are found as stones. As you can see this second one along here, that's a stone, that's how you find them. And they litter all over the place, round by me on various hedgerows. They're all over the place. I take them from the ground, some of them when they're fallen fruit, and you need to crack open the stones. Open your stones if you do collect wild plums. You'll need something like this. It's a little mini vice. Notice I'm wearing the safety glasses, and I put them sideways on, as you can see. And then basically just apply enough pressure until you hear it crack, it'll split. Take the vice off, and then the little seed should drop out. And that's how I've got all these little seeds from cracking open stones. And these can be planted out then after winter and early spring. I'll keep them indoors. I'm just keeping them cold over the winter. You can apparently, some people say if you give them a little scratch with a needle and scarify them before you plant them, or some sort of thermal shock, not boiling water but quite hot water to break them out of dormancy before you put them into a pot. And I'll let you know how I get on, but it's a nice experiment to do, isn't it? See if I can grow some wild plums. Very handy tools in the garden have been, so far in the autumn, my anvil loppers. These are very good because I've been able to take a lot of cuttings this year. So this includes things like sea holly, also from my beautiful twisted hazel here, which gave me some hazelnuts actually, into water with a little bit of seaweed concentrate. And also you can take cuttings from variegated holly. This is a female holly. As you can see, this tree's actually got berries on it, so it's a female holly. It's beautiful at Christmas time. Incidentally, if you're looking for a decent present for a gardener, if you have a Home Bargains near you in the UK, get them a pair of these gel knee pads. They're very reasonably priced. A fraction of the cost, you get a pair. Heavy duty, perfect for people like me whose knees have seen much better days. And on special offer at my Aldi were these lovely Pernetta, I think they're called, or Gaultheria. Beautiful. They were under £2, and similarly found this, what this was instead at Lidl, and these are Christmas cacti, Christmas cactus. And again, got to be careful not to overwater them. I'm keeping these indoors, putting a bit of artificial light, well, a light bulb not far from them. But isn't that nice and Christmassy? It's such a nice low price for Christmas. Lovely. Well, that's it from me at the moment. You can see my trusty shredders there at the background. I shall have that on the drive on an extension lead with my safety glasses on. Quite a bit to go in this year, and then hopefully I can take that shredded wood down to the allotments to help with composting and things like that. Of course, all work and no play is very boring, so using some of the raspberry jam, and this is the raspberry jam made from this year's crop on my plot. I've made this beautiful double Victoria sponge, see? Look at that. Definitely in charge of singing duties today, aren't you, Robin?